Hello, Steve White, Trekboy 89 for Steve Arts 89, Star Trek's Alleged Gatekeeper. Now, I just watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 2, Children of the Comet. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. There was one issue which kind of bothered me, but aside from that, I found myself quite immersed in some of the scenes and I was really enjoying it. So I'm feeling really good about the series as a whole so far. I mean, we're 2 for 2, so I'm feeling a lot more optimistic. There are some overall issues, but I think episode to episode, I think it's going to be quite good. Now, the episode starts off showing an alien planet. It's a desert planet. We have Uhura doing a log basically saying that they're observing a comet approach this planet. Then we have Uhura appearing or arriving at Pike's dinner. Now, Ortegas has basically tricked her into wearing her dress uniform by telling her it's formal, which is basically hazing her. So part of this whole scene is Uhura being the new cadet and being introduced to the crew and so forth and hazing and that. There's some interesting interactions between the crew. There's some flirting and stuff, and Uhura stumbles twice. She immediately goes over to the blind Andorian engineer and offers him assistance because he's impaired. He is offended by that word, and Spock points this out, sort of criticising Uhura. And at first she's kind of worried that she stepped in it, and then she actually thinks they're hazing her, and she walks off. And because of the engineer's arrogance and Spock's Vulcanness, they're actually totally serious, and they weren't hazing her at all. So that's kind of funny. There are some little scenes that are good. Now Pike does ask her where she sees herself being in 10 years when they're at the dinner and they're talking because they're trying to get to know her. And he immediately reacts to his own question because he probably hasn't asked anyone that since he found out about his fate. And no one notices this. And this is the point where Uhura tells her tragic story. And if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I'm looking at all the screen captures so I can remember what happens because there's a lot happening in the episode. And she tells a tragic story. Basically, she always wanted to study linguistics. She was planning to go to university. Her parents both worked at university, but them and her brother both died in a shuttle accident. So after that, she couldn't see herself studying at university, so she felt lost and she basically ran away to Starfleet. Now, this doesn't go over so well in a room full of career officers who basically worked their whole life to be where they are. She got there on Genius, basically, and she's not even sure if she wants to be there. So she feels quite awkward, and Spock speaks to her afterwards and basically tells her, look, you bet out 2,000 people who wanted to be here and worked really hard. You need to decide if you really want to be here, because there's other people who want to be here. So now we go off to a scene where they discover for some reason that the comet is actually going to hit the planet. Now, did they not map the trajectory in the first place, or did the trajectory change? I'm not quite sure why all of a sudden this comes up. And they figure, well, okay, we'll just fire some torpedoes at it and we'll just knock it off the trajectory. It should be fine. And they fire on the comet and they discover that it's got shields. And then we have the credits. Now, after the credits, they are trying to sort of work out what it is. They find that there's basically a structure inside the comet. So I'm guessing this object or ship or whatever is just traveling through space for a long time and accumulate all this ice, and the comet is built up around it. They decide to just go down and try and work out what it is and so forth. And because the shields aren't up all the time, the shields are only up in response to the torpedoes. So they decide to beam down, and that's where I sort of was a little distracted, because in the original pilot cage they had an Asian security chief, transporter chief, but instead of just building this character out and making him into a real character in the show, they race swapped another character from the original series and Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And I found that really distracting because I'm like, okay, the actor's cute, he's doing a fine job, but he's not Kyle. And it reminded me that I'm watching a reboot. And one of the ways you reboot a show successfully is you don't make it obvious that you've rebooted it so people can enjoy it and it doesn't sort of contradict the other shows and sort of raise those sort of issues. So I found that distracting for a moment, and I just thought it was stupid because they could have, yes, we need the diversity, we need the representation. They already had representation in the original pilot. All they had to do was turn that character into a real character and feature him in the series instead of being lazy and just race swapping a character that already existed, that had already been created, and then that sort of causes this contradiction, and it's difficult when you're familiar with that character to watch the other character and not be conscious of the fact that that's a reboot of that character and you're watching a reboot. So once they beamed down and I got past that, I was fine, but that kind of annoyed me for a moment. Now, Uhura looked quite scared when she was beaming down, and the scene that we see is the scene we saw in the trailer where they're beaming down onto this comet, and it's dark, and it looks like they're going into like the ship from Alien. From that scene, it kind of looks like that. They go in, it's like a cavern, and it looks like there's water on the ground, and it looks quite real. And then they find this egg, this gold egg-shaped object in the center of the room. Now, they're being cautious, but of course Samuel Kirk walks right up and touches it, even though when he first stepped up on the platform it was on, power came on and they're all being cautious. He just touches it and he gets shocked and he gets killed. They literally have to use the defibrillator function on the tricorder to bring him back to life. They do that, but he needs immediate medical attention. So they're trying to work out how to get out of the ship, out of the comet now, because the shields have come up and stayed on, because obviously this has set off some sort of alert. Now, there was some sort of writing on the egg that Samuel asked Kirk, asked Uhura, could she actually decipher it? And she's like, no, I'm just a cadet. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an expert. And her attitude is a bit of a problem, because her attitude is, I'm just a cadet. And it's like, you're here for a reason. You're a member of the crew. You're supposed to be doing a job. So it takes her a while to really get that. And Spock has to explain a few things to her and try to give her a pep talk, which she just sort of points out how clunky it is, and it is. And he's like, oh, I've been working on it. So their interactions are interesting, but while she's dealing with this and quite anxious, she starts humming, and the walls start reacting to the noise, and Spock and her work out, because Lian is useless at this, and Lian is quite an outsider, because earlier in the episode where they were preparing to beam down, they're all getting shots to prepare them for the radiation and that from the comet. Lian doesn't react to being shocked. Everyone else being given the shot, everyone else is like shocked that it actually hurts. So are they trying to establish that she's genetically engineered for the audience and the crew doesn't recognize it or something? Or is everyone knew it? No, I just assumed everyone knew her history. Is it a mystery? So I'm not sure what's happening there. But she obviously didn't put any importance on learning music, so she's useless. So Spock and Uhura start singing, and they work out the harmonies and resonance, and they actually essentially talk to this comet, and they get it to lower the shield. So they're able to beam off. But by this time, a group of aliens called the Shepherds have shown up, because I don't know if they started coming there when the ship first fired on the comet, or whether they touched the object, whether that alerted them. But they showed up, and they're basically saying, this is a holy object. They refer to it like it's a prophet or a person. They refer to his will, and they're saying it's preordained and you cannot interfere. And they're like, well, it's going to destroy a planet. We can't just let that happen. Let's talk. And there's like, no, sorry, religious dogma, that's it. So I'm kind of glad that Pike sort of ignores that and just sticks with reality. But he has to work out how to deal with this. So the ship starts firing on them because they consider this is an act of war. They've interfered. They were told not to interfere before they beamed the crew out. And they saw that as more interfering. So they're kind of holding their own, and the space battle's pretty good. But eventually they try the tactic of actually going all the way through the comet's tail and basically landing right on the surface of the comet practically. And they do this so obviously the other ship won't fire because they're afraid of damaging the ship. And they say, well, and they play dead and they turn off all the systems and say, we're damaged and we're going to blow up if you don't move us or if you fire on us, and that will destroy the comet. So they tractor them off, and while they're doing this, Spock gets in a shuttle and he flies around the edge of the comet with the shields emanating heat, with the heat shields on, and basically it breaks off a big chunk of the comet and it goes into the atmosphere and changes the atmosphere and makes the planet more wet, so it rains. So it's more inhabitable because it's going to allow for growing more plants and trees and things because the atmosphere has changed. It's I'm not sure all the terms, but you know what I mean. So it actually does help this planet. Now, the shepherds basically just leave because they're like, look, it did its job, you doubted it, you perhaps in future should, take people's religions more seriously, and they leave. Now, they have a moment of going, did these religious people know what was going to happen? Because Spock interfered. Now, Uhura eventually works out all the signals now that they got, that they left because she didn't have the time to decode it all. And they actually were letting us know, the crew know, that here's the trajectory. We're not actually going to, hit the planet. We're going to go around the planet. And this piece of ice is going to break off, and it's going to help seed the planet. But Spock did that. But they knew that. Was that part of their plan? How could that be part of their plan? So it's a bit of a mystery. It's a bit of a contradiction. I'm not sure if it makes sense. I'm not sure if it's a good mystery or if it just doesn't make sense. But I'm fine with it. But the scenes where they actually go into the Comet's tail of the Enterprise look amazing, and they just keep going and going. It's not just one little shot and then they cut back to the bridge. They just keep you on the journey the whole time, going through and around, and it's really good. The Enterprise looks amazing because in the first episode, some of the shots of the Enterprise, it looked like this black, dark, gunmetal sort of ship, whereas this, it's fully lit. Apparently they found a key light because their philosophy before seemed to be that there's no key light in space, but it was well lit. It looks great, and the effects were great, and it really was immersive. I really felt like I was there and really following the ship. And the same thing when Spock sent his shuttle around the edge of the comet. It was the same thing. And probably the only awkward part of the episode was really the whole time they're talking about joking, trying to explain joking to Spock, and basically saying how when things are at their worst, sometimes it helps to laugh. And when Spock is going around the asteroid, he actually hits part of the ice, because one of the deals was Pike said, we won't touch your comet. So, of course, they go around the surface with heat and, cause part of the ice to break off. So that was their way of getting around it. And then the shepherds basically claimed it as their own, and like, oh, we knew this was going to happen. Of course, this was all, it wasn't that you did this. This was always supposed to happen. It turned out right, and we're going to claim it. So I'm like, But yeah, after all this, they're wondering where Spock is because he hit part of, the ice, and his signal went out, and they were like trying to contact him, and then he comes through on the communications, and he's laughing, and then he basically says, things, sometimes, things got so bad I had to laugh, and I'm like, okay, I can see a lot of people getting upset by this, him laughing. I'm like, he didn't really laugh. He wasn't laughing. He didn't actually find it funny, but he was trying to do this thing humans do, which is laugh when things go really bad. So it was like a forced thing he sort of did and didn't really work because he didn't really get it. So it's kind of funny, but not really, and sort of out of character, but it made sense because he doesn't understand humans, that he sort of interpreted it that way and was very literal about it and did that as some odd example. So it's kind of weird. And I see a lot of people saying, oh, Spock doesn't laugh, he wouldn't do that. I'm like, he's trying to, fit in with humans. He's trying to understand more. He's sort of on this, ongoing sort of growth. So it kind of works. So yeah. So overall, the episode was great. The effects were great. The story was good. I really enjoyed it. I really got into some of the scenes. I was quite thrilled by the effects and all that. There was one issue with the LED wall room thing that they have. There was one shot where you could see that all the they had images of some rocks in the foreground that were supposed to be on the ground as part of, but they just looked totally two-dimensional and part of the screen. They really should have invested in some little lumps of dirt or something to sit in front of the screen instead of putting them on the screen as a graphic. It didn't really work. But that was just one shot. For the most part, it looked really real the whole time. It was just that one shot that didn't work. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I really was trying to do this review in 10 minutes, but I just couldn't do it. But yeah, the only issue is the retcon stuff, the canon stuff, because it does make fans like me who are aware of the show and aware of the history It just reminds them that it's either inconsistent in the canon, or that that's a reboot, and it just sort of draws attention to itself. And in the case of the transporter chief, they could have totally avoided it by, like I said before, building this little extra in the first pilot into an actual character instead of race swapping a character that we already know, and then having that contradiction just throughout the whole series. So I just wish they hadn't made that choice. It was a dumb choice, and it undermines just the episode. But like I said, it was only a couple of seconds he's on the screen. I think he's on the screen twice, but there's only one scene he was really in. The rest of the episode I enjoyed, but why have that thing? Why have that problem there in the first place? So yeah. So for the most part, great. One little complaint. It's going to be an ongoing sort of complaint, but overall it's great, and I'm feeling really optimistic about the series as a whole. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.